In this video, an Amazon expert, Norm Farrar, answers the most important questions about Amazon listing optimization, including keyword research, how to use keywords for the title and listing optimization, how to work with images, and as well as how to increase price of perceived value of the product. This video is hosted by Lisette Liz, who works with different Amazon brands. And finally, if you like this video and the content you hear in it, make sure that you click the like button below this video and subscribe to our channel.
Hi Norman, I'm really happy to have you here today, joining me on OrangeClick YouTube channel to talk about listing optimization. So before we go into that topic, could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do in the Amazon space?
Yeah, sure. My name is Norm Farrar. I've been selling since about early 90s or mid 90s. And I am in this Amazon space. I think I got into it in 2013 or 14, which seems so long ago now for Amazon users. I am a seller. I own a couple of brands, but I also have a managed service as well as a sourcing and logistics company, a communications company, and I have a podcast.
Okay, so you're doing a lot of different things at the same time, right? So I bet that's also one of the reasons why you are the right person to join me today to talk about listing optimization, because I think you are well aware of different updates that have been happening. And you as a seller and doing all of the different things, you also know what usually works the best and what doesn't give the effect so much for the sellers. So what we will do today, we have gathered some main questions sellers have been asking us about this listing optimization. So let's just start with the first question. It's regarding to the keywords. So should sellers usually look at the search volume or the search frequency rank when they are choosing the keywords to use to optimize their product listing?
Well, the very first thing people have to look at is whether they are a browsing or a buying keyword. And even that could mess you up. So I'll give you a really quick example. So pet chews or dog treats, those are browsing keywords that the person does not know what they're looking for. And by that note, I do have a dog that just came out that will not go away unless I give him a treat. Sit, touch. There you go. So, perfect timing though. But anyways, if you take a look at the word bully stick, well, they definitely know what they want, but there's a huge search volume. It used to be 200,000. It's probably around 50 or 60,000 now, but that's a buying keyword. People know what they want, but you really have to dig down. So search volume doesn't mean anything to me. It's if I can find under that primary keyword, what's called a primary long tail keyword that has all right search volume, and I can extract a lot of long tails with that. So let's say it's natural bully stick, and it might have 10,000 or 7,000 search, maybe even 5,000. But if I can get 5 or 10 really good long tail keywords underneath that, such as 6-inch natural, organic natural, grass-fed natural bully stick, those types of keywords, I'll extract that into a list and then use that based on a primary keywords. That's what I'm looking for. So it's search volume and the primary keyword. Does it have the ability to have 5, 6 long tails supporting it? Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And you were mentioning all right volume of search volume. So I wanted to ask, a lot of sellers are often asking, what is considered to be a good search volume?
It really depends on the competitiveness of the product. So I take a look at competitiveness, price, and competition. In some, let's take the bully sticks, for example. Search volume under the word pizzle. So for bully sticks, there is another word called pizzle. nobody really searches for it. Now they will, but but nobody searches for that word. I can go and have very, very low search volume and still be happy with the results. And by low, I mean, they could be under 1,000 units, but there could be 5, let's say one's 1,000, one's 500, one's 300, one's 200, one's 100. Those are 2,000 or plus extra searches that I would get under Pizzle for bully sticks. Now, this whole scenario might change with a very expensive product. I might be looking at, and I should say this is very similar to what I just said, because you're not really looking for a lot of search volume. You're looking for somebody that's going to buy a high price ticket that's going to drive volume. But for the most case, it is, my answer is, how long is a piece of string? There is no answer. If you're looking at a product that has a primary long tail, so let's say natural bully stick, and they have a lot of supporting long tails that do not have to be big, like it could be well under 1,000 units. I like to get around 2,500 units or 5,000 units to support that one keyword, the primary long tail. But all those long tails, I don't care if they're 100, I don't care if they're 200. If they can support it and I can get those extra sales, why not target it? So that's a really tough question. But for the most part, if you're using the method that I use, I'm looking for a series of primary long tail keywords, which I will download into individual spreadsheets. I call them silos, but individual spreadsheets. So one would be organic bully stick, one would be grass-fed bully stick, organic bully stick, and then each one of those silos would have a series of keywords. Put them all together, and you'll have a huge amount of search volume.
Okay, very good. So if sellers already have this spreadsheet of keywords, then based on what criteria they can choose keywords, especially for the product title? So do you have any tips to give?
Yeah, well, one of the things you want to do is make sure you research your competition. The competition is really everything. And I'm not talking about, oh, this is the best seller. Go and really look at that whole first page. Also look off Amazon. So you want to see what Google is showing. Are they on Shopify? If they are on Shopify, see other competitors on Shopify. And one of the things my partner, Tim Jordan, he's well known for doing niche keywords. So I think in Project X, they were looking at a coffin holder or something like that, or an egg holder. So he went and he showed everybody that, egg holder has, I don't know how much, 100,000. It was crazy amount of search volume, 200,000. And he was able to find a niche keyword by doing the research. He found that there was a wooden egg holder, and that's what he used for his keyword phrase in the title. So he was able to find the niche, drive traffic to that niche, and pick up some significant sales from it. Now, there was nobody on Amazon selling wooden. Now take a look. It's completely saturated. So, anything you say, now people are going to jump on and, they'll try to sell, which is the wrong thing to do. But anyways, that's the best thing for me to do is try to find that niche. Now, that also depends on money. So if you've got the capitalization to go out there and go after those primary keywords or those primary phrases, then you can go for it. But for me, I like to go for those secondary. And at the beginning, like I mentioned in my presentation, the way that I set it up, phase 1, phase 2, is completely different than what I would normally have done 4 or 5 months ago, where I'm loading in keyword phrases into my title. It's almost like back to 2014, where you would just do 250 characters, load it all in. And this depends on your category, the size of your title too, the length of your title that your style guide allows you. But let's say you put in 200 characters. They're going to be for the first 30 days, I'm jamming in as many keywords as I can. It looks ugly, but I'm trying to get indexing, and that's for everything. Then I'll go back and I'll put whatever's converting the best or what I'm trying to target. I'm hoping that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally does. And actually for the viewers, Norman mentioned his presentation. So if you didn't participate in the ClickBox Summit, then Norman gave a wonderful, very long and detailed presentation about different things, about perceived value of the product, and also a lot of different tips about optimization. So everybody can have a look at that session as well. And now we are going through some of the questions that we were left unanswered that time. So one more question about the product title. So would you recommend sellers to add the brand name in the title as well, or would you at first, let's say during the launch phase, rather recommend to leave it out to add another keyword in?
6 months ago, I would try to get around it. A year ago, I'd try to get around it. But Amazon now is more and more, they're forcing the issue. All of a sudden, you upload your flat file, which, by the way, is the only way to do it. I don't add a product at all manually. I add as many fields with my flat file as possible for safety reasons, but also just to know what I can and the proper data variations that I can upload. But going back to the original question, yeah, I add my brand. Also, this also helps with your PPC. So within PPC, some of the things that we're doing right off the bat for your brand listing or your launch optimization is going after those long tail keywords with your brand in front of it, or even your primary long tail, which would be natural bully stick, with your brand in front of it. Conquer that first and then go after the other.
Okay, very good. So let's now move to the product pricing. So I know somebody asked during the summit as well. So should sellers keep their product price lower when launching, lower than their competitors?
Yeah, for the most part, you would look at that. You would probably launch lower, and then you would you bring up your price. So you just have to be careful with that. When you're launching your product, a lot of the times people drop their pants, and there's no need to drop it that far. You want to come out as a high quality product that's just slightly lower than the competitors. Now, one of the ways to achieve this is you can come out, let's say that you're coming out at $20 or $40. Let's use 40. So you're coming out at $40, or the competitors are all in that range, $37 to $45. I'll come out at maybe a $38 at the lower range, and I'll give a discount. So I'll use a digital coupon that says, okay, look, it's $38, or maybe let's push it a little bit higher, but I'm giving a $5 coupon. So now it looks like, okay, they're $38, which is right in that high perceived value area. But if I use that $5 coupon, I'm going to get a much better deal. It's still a very high perceived product, and you're getting that, you're getting a high perceived product at a lower price than the lower rate. But I wouldn't go to $19 for the most part. Now, there are some exceptions to that. I might move a lot of product my first week if I'm doing like a really aggressive search find buy campaign, or if I'm moving rebates. And you have to be careful with rebates, but if you're using the right company or a good rebate concierge type service, then it should be safe. But yeah, it just depends on the campaign. For the most part, I go just above the lower end of the higher perceived value, if my product can support that, and then I add a digital coupon.
Okay, very good. So generally speaking, when talking about changing the product price, because sometimes you have to adjust your product price, whether you're doing some upgrades to your product, then let's say sellers want to increase their product price, let's say $2, $3. So would you do it once, or would you do it step by step over a certain time period?
I don't know this as concrete, but from what I've heard through the grapevine, people talking to Amazon directly, is that they don't like sellers who change their price on a frequent basis because it's inconsistent. So they're looking at it from a customer experience. And so somebody buys your product one day, it's one price. Somebody buys it the second day or the next week, it's a different price. It's inconsistent, and they could lose sales that way. So, and it's not good for you either. So why are you, at the beginning, you're establishing your price. Now, I'm a firm believer in split testing your everything, split testing everything, including your price. But once you establish it, I mean, you should already have a zone where you're into. Again, I used a Dead Sea Mud in the presentation, where it went from $6.95 up to $87, and the $6 one was 16 ounces, I think, and the $87 one was 3.5 ounces, and they were able, because of their packaging, to come up with this high perceived value. Well, if your product supports being able to sell at that level, great. If your product only supports that mid-price tier, which, let's say $20, okay. If you're going after tons of sales and very little profit, then it's only going to support maybe $12 to $6 to $12. You have to figure that out, and then work within that price range. So once I establish a price, I'll play around with it for a bit, but it's not like it's changing every other day. I might change it. I'll give it some time, first of all. So 2 weeks, see what it's doing. And if I think I might need to bump it up, so get this. So I think I talked about the knives. During the presentation, I talked about these knives we were selling, and we went from $49 up to $124. Well, we brought them up. We waited, and we brought them up. A month later, we brought it up to $79. We brought it up to $99, up to $124. But we made an adjustment. We brought it back to $99. That was a sweet spot. And the $49 traffic and the $99 traffic was pretty much the same. People wanted a better quality knife at $99, and they felt, and you can do this like pet industry or baby category, right? People want quality products. So you can, instead of lowering your price, increase your price, as long as the packaging and the quality and the photographs are there to support it. If it's not, you're going to see a huge drop in traffic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned split testing. So let's say seller is thinking of like redesigning the package, redoing the product, perhaps doing some upgrades. So how can seller know that the changes he wants to do are actually better and will increase the perceived value? So what are the best options sellers can test those things, perhaps before they actually launch the upgraded version on Amazon?
Well, let's talk about packaging first. So packaging can make a huge difference. So $1 and change, we were able to go up to $124 from $49, $3 worth of packaging. Same knife, different ASIN. So we changed it. We got that knife to $224. That same one, which was $16 cost of goods, we killed it for that. You have to split test. So first of all, you have to open your eyes and look at the competitors. What are they doing? How are they doing it? How are they, if they're coming up, if you're ranking on page 1, or can you get to page 1? But if you're ranking for those keywords on page 1, is everything consistent? If everything is black, can you make it yellow? If everything's going left to right, can you go right to left or diagonal? Make it where it stands out. That's the first thing. The second thing is the image better be pretty good. So if you're taking it with an iPhone and you think you're a photographer, forget about it. It doesn't work. Not if you're trying to get people's attention. A product photographer knows how to do this stuff. They know the lens, they know the shadows. Lighting is everything. So sometimes it's not even the packaging, it's just the quality of the photos. But if you go to a package designer, get them to repackage the product for you. A lot of new Amazon sellers put way too much information. They make their packages a book, and you want to simplify that. And if you do, for some reason, want a book on your package, that's fine. When the person gets it, it can be a book. But on Amazon, at least, when you're showing the product, have your artist remove the book and just put the right information so people can see your logo. I have a client right now who's an really incredible product. Everybody's knocked them off. They have the same bottle, a similar logo, but they've done one thing different. You're not able to read his name, his brand on the bottle. The others you can. And he's losing sales because they're thinking they're getting his product. And it's very hard to distinguish between, you know, his brand and the others. So he's losing it. He's probably lost 2/3 of his sales that way. So when you're establishing the labels, it's so important. If you're another huge item is packaging. What we're like the bottles. If you're going to go out with a cheap bottle because it's going to cost you less money. Now my dog's directly behind me on the couch. So if you hear him howling or something, that's not me. But anyway, you know, now I lost my thought with my bloody dog. I was talking about the packaging. So you can have, I'll give you an example with supplements. Supplements, if you go to a supplement page, you'll see, let's say it's pet supplements. You can see who the supplier is by the label, by the bottles, because you'll see the same golden retriever with the same green and blue with similar types of information. Don't use the manufacturer's label design or packaging. If you could take that, you know, bottle or package that they have, change it, make it unique. Like men's grooming, there's so many opportunities there to be different. It might be less expensive, it might be a few pennies more, but you can stand out. And everybody knows, like in every category, if you go to shampoo, you know that pump, you know, or the conditioner, you know, the pump bottle. How can you make that different? And there's all sorts of options out there. You just have to find them. You can go to Alibaba and check them out. You don't have to use Alibaba, but you can use that as a great resource. Or you can go to a sourcing agent, or you can go to somebody who knows packaging and go to a professional. And I stress this, you know, don't go to your sister, brother, spouse. Go to somebody who's a graphic designer who specializes in packaging. And also with packaging, especially if it's cardboard, you want to make sure that it's a 3D rendering. Now, TOS says that 3D rendering really shouldn't do, but I've never seen a problem with it. And the reason for that, let's say that it's cardboard. Cardboard could have a wrinkle. Cardboard has these edges that could bend up. It could take away from the quality of the overall image because the packaging looks great. I've got a product, it's a $200 product, and it came to me, shipped to me, my spec sample, beautiful packaging, but the whole corner was banged up. Well, if that goes to the photographer that way, all you're going to do is get a really great picture with a banged up corner. So I go to a 3D rendering company and they'll do it, very inexpensive nowadays, and it looks perfect. I've done this with pillows, where pillows, like, they come out wrinkled, sheets come out wrinkled. You can't help it. What do? You go to a 3D rendering company, or a really good graphic artist, and they can take away all those pillows or all those wrinkles. And the other thing is, let's say that you have a really great photo, but it might be on a black package. And this is usually with any type of plastic. It's very hard to bring out the light. Well, a good graphic artist can make anything that's a cylinder look like a cylinder with having the lighting coming down the sides. Or if you have, like I used a garden shear where the one was flat, had no lighting, and then the other one brought out the light of the metal and just the light along the handle. It looks gorgeous and it stands out. So it's so important. Packaging is so important for perceived value.
Okay, very good. And you mentioned also not only the packaging and the product itself, but also the photos and other materials sellers are creating to put together the product listing page. So now when we talk about, you mentioned a little bit about images and 3D rendering images as well. So let's talk about videos. So I know during your presentation, you recommended to definitely add videos to the listing page. So what type of videos sellers could add to their product listing page?
Well, people are like, I'm going back and forth. I'm hearing different people say different things. So people say, oh, you know, you have to have a fairly high quality video nowadays. And I still don't think you have to. You could do something on your own. I don't, although I'm a photographer. That's what I went through school for. But I still send mine out. It's been a long time since I've really picked up a camera, but I do have a light tent over here. I'm looking at it just over this side. Do I use it? Very seldom. I send it over to a product photographer, and but I send it over to a product photographer who usually has the capability of doing videos. Now that could just be on a rotating table. It could be your product. Let's say it's a supplement, turning around, Bully Sticks, turning around. And when you get it back, or you can tell the videographer, the benefits or the features, something to be brought out. So you see this product, there might be a highlight that shows up, and then you see the feature. And then, or it could be another image. It could be just images of lifestyle images. It could be images from your A+ or from your, I don't necessarily put the slide deck images on, but I will take different types of images of features and benefits. But at worst, it's your primary image with, it rotating with just what your bullets are saying. Why should people buy your product? Don't make it a long video. I like keeping mine really short, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, because people lose attention. We have attention span of a goldfish, basically. So, keep it to that. And a lot of people will, just because of ego or passion, they'll make this 15-minute, and you can't put that long of a video on there, but they will try to max it out. And there's really no need to. And this is completely different, though. If you are using video for your PPC, I would spend the money nowadays to have a professional videographer go create it. And there's a lot out there. They range in all sorts of prices, but that's a different story. If you want to grab somebody's attention with the new PPC video ads, you do it right, I believe. There's too much competition out there. They're doing it right. You've got to, just like the perceived value, you've got to look better than your competition.
Okay, that's really good insight. Okay, so one viewer asked during the ClickBox Summit, actually asked about how to mark dimensions for different marketplaces. So would you recommend using inches or centimeters for the US marketplace? I think it was a UK seller asking the question. Okay, well, it depends. So let's take a look at soap, for example. So, or shampoo. Shampoo, I see most of the time in milliliters, but you can mark it, you can put on the bottle both. So I sell shampoo. I'll put the what is it? The American or the metric and the US imperial. So whatever those are called, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah. Both volume or weight on the package, so there's no confusion. So when people see it, they can see that. I'll also put it in whatever the competition is doing. If they're putting it in inches, I'm putting it in inches. But I will put somewhere, if it's in the bullets, if it's in the back end, if you're targeting a certain, like if somebody is searching for 6 ounce or 12 ounce or 6 inch, you could turn that into a centimeter or whatever people are looking for. So let's say that you are going out there and it's, I don't know, what's 6? I live in Canada. I've got like 30 or 40 years using metric, but I still use inches. I don't know what a 6-inch steak knife or chef knife would be in centimeters, but if you see that people are searching for that, people are searching for it. So put that in your back end under your search terms. Okay, very good. So Norman, thank you so much for sharing all of this information. To wrap our discussion up, I would ask you, like, how often do you recommend sellers to have a look on what competitors are doing in terms of like optimization? How often sellers should really like open up the competitors' detail pages and see what have they changed, how they're using their images or videos, etc.? It's tough to do if you're doing it yourself all the time. You know, sometimes you've got 1,000 other things that you're doing. If you did it once a month, give yourself a pat on the back.
The more, the better, right? If you're doing it, if you can keep a daily eye on it, great. I mean, that's for overachievers. But for like if you have a VA, the VA can go out there. The VA can monitor to that. You can also, like one of the things, like through SentryKit or I think Helium 10 or Cellarize or whatever the app you're using, set up alerts, because that's going to tell you if there's something happening, usually on your listing or on other listings. You'll get alerts on it. But at very worst, and what I recommend is that you have a VA. Get a good VA that has general skills that can go out and monitor it for you, and maybe once a week. I think, would be good, because especially if you've got, 50 SKUs or 25 SKUs, it's a lot of work. But if you do it once a week, that's great. If you do it once a month, that's another. The biggest thing is going to tell you is if you have a drop in sales, what's going on? Why am I losing sales? And then that would prompt me to dig, and if you see that happen every week, especially fourth quarter, I'd be in there looking and making sure that I'm doing something different. Now, it might be as simple as putting up, and again, against terms of service, but I've seen tons of people do it. All of a sudden, their primary image has a bow on it, so it looks like it's giftable. No words, just a bow or in a stocking or something that looks like it's good for the holidays, right? They sneak it in there until they get suppressed. So that's just a little tip. And one other thing, probably the biggest thing that you can do right now to help with your search terms is I mentioned the going into your A+ pages and adding keywords to your alt text, which is called keyword terms, I believe, when you hit the edit button on the image. That is probably your biggest. And you get 100 characters per image. So just imagine how much you can do in A+. You could add another 1,000 characters into your search terms just by doing that little tip.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the best tips from your presentation during the ClickBox Summit as well. So yeah, very cool. So thank you so much, Norm. And before we say goodbye to our viewers, could you briefly introduce some of the companies you are leading, which help Amazon sellers, to just let our viewers know in which topics you can help them as well?
Yeah, sure. So AMZ.club, we don't have a website. We don't have zero website. It's all word of mouth. But that helps with managed services for Walmart. It's big in Walmart right now, but Walmart and Amazon. Honu Worldwide, HONU, is a sourcing and logistics company. We have a 3PL. It's a warehouse in Pennsylvania. We also do product innovation. Afalabi Orocon, you may have heard of him. He's my partner over there. And then with PR Reach, we have press releases, earned media, content marketing, influencer marketing, and finally the podcast. The podcast is free content. It's Lunch with Norm. It's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I love doing that. I learn a ton just from all the guests that come on.
Okay, sounds really good. So everybody who are now finishing this episode can go to Norm's podcast and learn even more. Okay, so okay, so thanks a lot and good luck in your business.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me on. This was fun.
I hope this video was helpful, and now I recommend you to check out another video with Norm Farrar, where he talked about how to optimize Amazon FBA product listing to double your profits in Q4, the most important quarter of the year.